And well, it's my great honor to welcome to the stage Chellee's daughter, Hannah Pingree, as our first speaker tonight.
This is an awesome audience. Thank you all for showing up, for finding parking spots. Thank you for being here. It is not raining. We should cheer for that, right? My name is Hannah Pingree, and I'm here to introduce my mom, Congresswoman Chellie Pingree. But before I do, I want to thank some people in this room, some legislators, some public officials, some people who made this night happen. I know that many members of the Westbrook delegation are here. I'm going to introduce them first. I know that Senator Jill Dewson, Senator Tim Nangle, Representative Sue Salisbury, Representative Drew Gatine. I think they're all here. Will they stand up? No. Oh, and Representative Morgan Riley. I wish Representative Riley was representing the coast. He's been fighting for all of our fishermen, so thank you. We also have a number of other legislators here. Representative Ellie Sato, Representative Parnell Terry, Representative Dylan Pugh, Representative Poppy Arford, Representative Decca Delac, Representative Chris Kessler, Representative Matt Beck, Representative Sophie Warren, Representative Kilton Webb, and Representative Cheryl Golick. If they are here, or any other members of the Maine legislature, please stand up. And I know that I know that the city of Westbrook tonight was, I think, considering their budget and their school budget. So the city council and the school board could not be here. But I know that there are many other local city councilors from other communities in Maine, mayors, select board members, school board members, city and town managers, planning board members. I want to have you all stand up, and I want to thank you for your service. I know that this is not an easy time to be an elected official, and we appreciate your service. Stand up. Some of you are out there. Lastly, I really want to thank, again, the city of Westbrook, the Westbrook Police Department, the Westbrook Middle School, all the volunteers who helped you park, the tech staff, the teachers, the school leaders, and students who are here, and for hosting this event. It's a great space, and we really appreciate it. So I'm going to be brief, but I am very proud of my mom and her tireless work on behalf of Maine. Some of you in this audience may know my mom well, and some of you may not. So just a little background. She started out as a state senator in the Maine state legislature from Knox County from 1992 to 2000, where she also served as the Senate Majority Leader. She led the organization Common Cause in Washington as their national president and CEO, advocating for good government and transparency. She was elected to Congress in 2008 and has been representing Maine's 1st congressional district for 16 years. She currently sits on the powerful House Appropriation Committee, chairing the Subcommittee on Interior and the Environment and the Subcommittee on Agriculture. She also sits on the House Agriculture Committee. She's been a small business owner, a farmer, a school board member. She's a mother, obviously, a great mother, and a grandmother. I was just in Washington, D.C. last week with my mother, and I was chaperoning a 7th and 8th grade school trip with my 2 kids and their classmates. We got to spend the better part of a day following my mom around through the halls of Congress, observing her hardworking staff and the many meetings with her constituents while juggling votes and committee meetings. We watched her testify in the Agriculture Committee and speak out forcefully in opposition to cuts to the SNAP program, a basic food assistance program that helps thousands of kids, families, and older Mainers. We watched House votes and a floor debate on a bill that would change the ability of the federal courts to intervene in issues of federal overreach. We saw how deeply my mom engages on the issues, working in any way she can to solve problems and benefit Maine. I'm obviously biased, but I would just say that I am very, very grateful for her hard work. I serve in Maine state government, leading the Governor's Office of Policy Innovation in the Future. We are focused on issues related to climate change, to children and aging Mainers, housing, opioids response, anti-hunger programs, new Americans, and jobs and economic development. Through our work and across the administration, we are working on many of the programs that are being impacted by a rapidly shifting and chaotic federal landscape, including cuts to federal employees, the elimination of essential funding and grant programs to Maine, and the rapidly changing tariff situation and the impact that has on our economy, our state budget, not to mention our relationships with our neighbors in Canada. I want you to know that Governor Janet Mills and her administration are fighting every day for Maine through the federal courts. Yes. We're fighting through the federal courts with Attorney General Fry and in partnership with our legislators and our federal delegation. I know you've all read the news, but just a few examples of the major impacts that are impacting Maine. We are seeing huge cuts and changes in USDA, taking money away from Maine farmers for projects already completed, and major reductions in funding and food supports for anti-hunger programs. The LIHEAP Heating Assistance Program had all the staff who manage this essential federal heating assistance program laid off just a week ago. There is no one left to administer Maine's grants and ensure that this program continues. This is a program that's helping approximately 50,000 Maine households afford to heat their homes. Last month, the Maine CDC lost a significant public health grant designed to prevent and monitor diseases like bird flu and measles. And on many of the issues my office focuses on related to storm recovery, climate and environmental protection, we are squarely in the Trump administration crosshairs. They're attacking states' rights to protect the environment, pursue clean energy, and even the essential weather forecasting and science at NOAA. They're cutting essential emergency management, storm recovery, and hazard mitigation programs. Last week, we saw the cancellation of the highly successful BRIC program, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, which helps communities fund investments to prepare for storms. They've now proposed the elimination of FEMA, sending federal disaster recovery to the responsibility of the states. And now we as a state hold our breath for what changes could come to Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security as DOGE does its work and Congress debates a sweeping budget. We know some of these policies and cuts are targeted just to Maine, but many match what we are seeing in every state across the nation. I am very grateful for my mother, for Governor Janet Mills, and all the others who continue to advocate for our democracy and for the people of Maine. So please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Chellie Pingree. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Hannah. It's my bossy oldest daughter, and she didn't even tell me what to say. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking a night out of your busy week to spend a little time here to talk about the issues that are confronting us. Thank you to all of the state legislators for the amazing work that you're doing, fighting back, and all the other elected officials in this room. Thank you to my great staff and team who have helped to put this together. I know Hannah already did a lot of thank yous, so I won't repeat them all again. And thank you to the Westbrook Police for being here with us tonight. Really grateful for all of you. I am so anxious to have an opportunity to hear your thoughts and questions. We spend every week down in Washington, and they seem endless, and the problems seem endless. And it means a great deal to me to see a room full of people who care deeply about the dangers that we're facing. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to talk a little bit so we have plenty of time for your questions and suggestions. But I think we all know we are facing some of the biggest crises we've ever faced in our democracy. And many of you are here because you're angry, you're upset, you're concerned, and you're confused. And you're scared. And I share all of those emotions with you. I don't think any of us who have served in the state legislature or the federal government have ever seen an administration that was anything like this. We have a president who's attempting to be an authoritarian, who has no respect for the separation of powers between the House and the Senate and the executive branch, who's using an unelected billionaire and his process of Doge to remove staff, to cut funding. You heard Hannah describe a little bit about the impacts on our state, but we are facing this every day, whether it's the Department of Education or the VA or the EPA. Cuts to our science institutions, the NIH, I said the EPA, dangerous cuts to the Social Security Administration, attempting really to turn it into something that barely functions anymore and then turn it over to Wall Street and take away the $2.7 trillion trust fund there. We are facing cuts to Medicaid, to SNAP, student loans, just so he could give tax cuts to billionaires and cut the taxes for big corporations. We've seen damage done to our international relationship and how people view us around the world. USAID disappearing, a president who wants to remove our relationship with NATO, and people around the world, as well as our closest neighbor, Canada, no longer feels good about us as neighbors anymore. We have a president who doesn't believe in the rule of law. And is not respecting lawyers and law firms and the work that they do. And today, just like every other day, he is defying the federal courts and the Supreme Courts in refusing to bring back a Maryland resident who belongs in this country and who he illegally removed. I was just watching something he did a couple of days ago, or I think this was yesterday, and it reminded me of this war we have on information and the truth. The president said he's going to sue CBS for the program 60 Minutes a couple of days ago, and I thought it was just such an important illustration of how he treats the truth. He's mad at CBS because they, during 60 Minutes, they had Zelensky on there who says the United States is no longer with them anymore and Russia is no longer abiding by any of the rules that they've suggested they will go along with. Well, I think we all know that we have taken the wrong side in that conflict, and the news is just reporting the truth. They had the Prime Minister of Greenland who said his country is deeply offended by our attempts to take them over, and the president wants to call this not the truth. We're going to have a $9.3 billion bill to rescind funds when we get back next week, to take away the funding from PBS and NPR. And when the president stops allowing us to have the news, where will we go for the truth? As I said, you've heard about a lot of the cuts, and they're all deeply disturbing. They've all had an impact in Maine already, and we know that there are so many more to come. Besides the fact of removing all of the funding from the USAID, the vital work that we've been doing around the world to keep allies around the world, but also to work with international diseases like Ebola or tuberculosis or things that we're hoping won't come to this country. The president is well on the way of destroying the Department of Education, removing most of the staff so far, but that's where we get the funding at our local school districts for Title I teachers or special education or student loans. Maine will be in very hard shape if we don't get that funding. And not only will that present big problems for the Maine state legislature, eventually when those funds are not available, that means our local school departments don't have them for the budgets, and it all goes back to our property taxes. So each and every one of us will feel this. At the Social Security office, as we know, they've already instituted more rules, cut back on the number of offices, made the wait times excessive, and they are anxious to cut the staff down to bare bones. In 90 years, the Social Security Administration has never missed a check. But I truly believe this is an administration who would like to ruin the ability of the Social Security Administration to function, the most vital program to keep our senior citizens financially stable. But when it doesn't function anymore, then they can say, it doesn't work. Why don't we just turn it over to Wall Street, and we could use that $2.7 trillion in the trust fund to fund our tax cuts. So I can go on all night, and I know it just depresses you, and most of you have already been reading these things in the news. The one thing I hear more than anything else is, so what are you doing about it? And as we talk about throughout the night, I will tell you about every action that we're taking in Congress. We may have gotten a slow start, but I guarantee you that most of us had already read Project 2025 before this election, and we were trying to warn people, but most of us thought, oh, that could never happen. It will never be that bad. And most people in the public didn't believe it, and the president himself said, of course, I don't even know what that is. How could I possibly do that? But now we can turn the page every day, and we see this unelected billionaire, Elon Musk, and Doge going agency by agency, cutting staff, cutting funding, blocking funds that are meant to come to states like Maine and meant to come to states around the country, completely illegally and unconstitutionally. Congress has the power of the purse. In a bipartisan way, we passed these appropriations bills last year that directed that funding back to states like Maine, back to those departments, and the president is systematically taking it away, just as he said he would do in Project 2025. So we are fighting back with legislation. When you're in the minority, it's much harder to pass legislation because the Speaker of the House, you may have heard of him, Mike Johnson, has the power to bring legislation to the floor. We can only do that with a discharge petition, but we've been getting a few through, but we will continue to submit legislation. We're holding shadow hearings when they don't want to have a hearing on something that we want to do on the rule of law or on science or integrity. We will continue to do that. When we do have hearings, we ask questions, we probe deeply, we come with information and tell them exactly what's going on in our state, and we're litigating every single issue. Once again, the only way to bring a piece of litigation from the House is by direction of the Speaker of the House. So right now, the House of Representatives is unwilling to sue the president for his illegal activity. But we have attorney generals in states like Maine and Democratic states around the country that are filing lawsuits. They are coming from labor unions, nonprofit organizations, employee groups. We have over 160 pieces of litigation going on right now, and we do win. We've won so far restraining orders in almost 60 cases, and we will continue to win. As you know, the president doesn't always follow them, but many he does, and we get the funding back. And in many of the funding streams, we've been able to reverse it or some of his crazy ideas. But we will have to keep doing that every single day that he's acting. And the other thing that we're doing is agitating. And thank you very much for those of you who are here to agitate and make your voices heard. I feel one of my most important jobs is to let you and everyone else know every day of the week what is going on. It's hard to keep up, and I know many of you do keep up every day, but I want people to know where those funding cuts are being made, how it's going to impact them, and why we have to fight back and what we're worrying about tomorrow. But it matters every day. Everyone who went to a protest on April 5th, thank you very, very much. It matters that you show up. It matters that you call my office, that you email my office, and that you contact the rest of the delegation. We vote on the House and we vote in the Senate, and everyone needs to know that that you have a strong feeling about what's going on, or to hear your personal story about how it is impacting you. You know, people often say to me, does it really matter if I send a letter? We count every one. And we tell our colleagues how many we get. We use your letters and your stories as examples. And people say, does it matter if I stand out on a street corner? You know, if just 2 people stand outside of a Social Security office, but 10 people drive by and see them there and see their signs, they say, oh, wow, is something going on with Social Security? I better call my member of Congress. I don't want them touching my Social Security or getting my private information or taking that away. And the next day there'll be 4 people, and the next day there'll be 10 people. And we just have to keep doing that until we win on every front. So we have a lot more to talk about, but I want to get to your questions. Please give it a start.
All right, thank you, Chellie. So here's how we're going to do this. My colleagues, Jim over there and Molly over there, are going to have microphones. We're going to ask folks to go stand behind them up the aisles. We're going to try to get to as many questions as possible. They're going to hold the microphones. You can ask your question, and we'd love it if you could keep your questions to under a minute so we can get to as many questions as possible. Also, where's Pam? Pam's getting her steps in, up and down. Put those comment cards in my mom's basket. We're going to read a couple comment cards as well, and we'll get started. Jim, why don't we start with you with this first woman coming down the aisle? Thanks so much.
I want to thank you so much for coming and speaking with us, your constituents. It seems incredible that we have to thank you for doing your job, but here we are. For years, I've noticed that the Democrats have had a real messaging problem. For example, instead of saying healthcare is a human right, why not say universal healthcare is cheaper and better, both of which are true? It seems to me the language that Democrats use does not resonate with the American people. I'm tired of hearing about outrage. It seems like the Republicans throw out ugly words and amoral behavior, and all the Democrats have is outrage. I am not seeing any Democratic planning for the future. So my question is, what is the vision? What's the mission? Where's our Project 2027 or 2029?
Well, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for thanking me, but I am thanking you. So thank you for all being here, because I really do appreciate that. And I'm going to take your criticisms just as much as I want to hear your questions and your support. And I agree, we are often not the people with the right message, or we don't express it in the right way. And I think it's the most important thing that we do is be able to convey to people exactly how things will impact their lives, to understand that their biggest concerns are the cost of housing, the cost of childcare, the cost of healthcare, and how they're going to get by every day. I wholeheartedly agree with you. We spend a lot of time in the Democratic caucus, trying to get our messaging right. But I do think often we're the party that, we don't tell lies, but we often make it complicated when we're explaining it to people. And my goal is to make this as simple as possible every day of the week. Thank you.
Hi, Congressman Pingree. Thanks for doing this tonight. My name's Ryan. I'm in Portland. Back in 2018, I attended a congressional debate that you did with Mark Holbrook, and I was sitting in the audience. It was with main public. And when the question of Syria, pulling our troops from Syria came up, you said that, yes, we should pull our troops from Syria. A few weeks later, when President Trump said that he wanted to pull troops from Syria, you said called it a reckless reversal of foreign policy. In that same debate, you actually said you were against Trump's first-term tariffs, the same tariffs that Kamala Harris ended up campaigning on this past cycle. If that's how you're going to govern, just reflexively against Trump, whatever he does, when we get numbers like these out of Doge from last week, how can I trust that you will do the right thing? 6,300 illegal aliens came under Biden that were either on the terrorist watch list or had heinous criminal records. 905 of them were collecting Medicaid, 41 were collecting unemployment, 22 were collecting student loans, and 409 were receiving tax refunds.
So we're at time. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for your question. And obviously, I don't ever want to be on the record saying one thing one day and one thing another. But I want to be clear about something. I will never reflexively be opposed to the Trump administration. I don't think things that they're doing are legal right now, whether it's Doge or the other proposals he has before some of us in Congress. But if Donald Trump does things that I'm in favor of, if there are tariffs that I think make sense, I will be wholeheartedly behind them. If there are things that RFK does to remove toxics from our food or get rid of dyes and colors or support regenerative agriculture, I will wholeheartedly be in favor of it. So I'm not going to be just a Democrat trying to oppose Donald Trump on everything that he does. Donald Trump ran on making the border more secure and bringing down prices. He's had a crazy, chaotic tariff system that hasn't made any sense to businesses, to the people who care about tariffs and think that they should be supported. They're on one day and off another. The way he does it is not getting manufacturers to invest in our country because there's no predictability and he can't make any sense out of it. The way he's dealing with Congress and not respecting our power of the purse is illegal and unconstitutional. And I don't like it because you need to have Congress's involvement if cuts are really going to stick, or they're going to be sensible cuts. They're going to make sense to people in Maine and other states across the country. So I'm sorry if there was any confusion about a position on Syria. I can't actually remember what that question was in 2018, but I would certainly be happy to look it up and go back to it. But I will not be reflexive, and I understand why many people supported Trump, but I don't believe that he's delivering on what he promised.
You can hold it. Yeah. Hi, I'm Anna Keller. I live in Portland, and I'm the director of the League of Women Voters of Maine. And I wanted to thank you, first off, for your vote against the SAVE Act last week. Will you also lend your voice to opposing the referendum that will be on the Maine ballots this next November, which also would make it harder for Maine people to be able to exercise their right to vote?
Well, thank you for that question, and thank you for bringing up the SAVE Act. I think many of you seem to know what it already is, but we took that vote in the House. It'll come up in the Senate, and you should let your senators know if you have an opinion about it. It's one of those things, not unlike the last question, where people say, like, of course, voting should only be for American citizens. Voting in federal elections, that is the law. It is a felony for an immigrant, someone without citizenship, to vote in a federal election. That already exists. But the SAVE Act would make it difficult for everyone to vote. I appreciate that you're from the League of Women Voters and that you care about voting access in Maine, and I care deeply about voting access in Maine, and I'm really proud to come from a state that has high voter turnout. You know, it's a wonderful thing when people don't have such when our laws are simple enough that people can understand. You can register on election day. Here's the kind of ID that you need to bring, and you too can be a participant, because we're all better off when most of us vote, or the majority of us vote. So I support that. The SAVE Act would require you to bring proof of citizenship to vote. We've never had to do that in this country. It's somewhat like having a poll tax, because it means that you would either have to have your passport or a birth certificate with your current name. If you don't have a passport, like half of Mainers, it would cost you about $165 to get one, and it takes a long time, and it'll probably get longer under this administration. So you'd either have to go get a passport, or if, like about 80% of married women, you've changed your name, or you've changed your name for another reason, if your name doesn't line up with the name on your birth certificate, you have to go get a new one of those or have it changed. So that would be an impediment for people. And a lot of people wouldn't know about it until election day. So I'm not in favor of impediments. I believe this bill, which is a strong favorite of the Trump administration, is to make it more difficult to vote, to discourage voting. The incidence of fraud and illegal immigrants who come to the polling places is almost non-existent. And it's likely to be even less existent with the raids that are going on and the people who are being picked up as immigrants today. So thank you for that.
Good evening. My name's Judy Aiken. I'm from Portland, and like everybody else, I'm deeply concerned about Social Security. But my passion in my retirement has been advocating for affordable drugs. And now it's preserving the gains we made through the Inflation Reduction Act on Medicare negotiation, lowering the cap, the Medicare cap, out-of-pocket cap. A couple of years ago, I spent thousands of dollars out of pocket. And now with the cap where it's at, it's been life-changing. So my concerns are more a concern. I don't know what you would have to say about that, but about 3 out of 5 people on Medicare can't afford their own drugs, and that's an issue.
Thank you very much for your question, and thank you for making that your cause. It's a very important issue. Lowering the cost of prescription drugs has been one of my big concerns from the days I was in the state legislature. And back in the 90s, actually, we passed a bill that was specific to Maine that was allowing our state to negotiate for the price of prescription drugs. And we started to learn about that, as many of you know, because we used to take bus trips up to Canada where people could buy many of their prescription drugs at a much lower price, because Canada and most other countries in the Western world negotiate for a good price. We're the only country in the world, in the Western world, that doesn't negotiate for good prices. So it's been a long time coming, but finally in the Inflation Reduction Act, as you mentioned, we got the ability to negotiate for 10 drug prices, and we also lowered the price of insulin. Big leaps forward, nowhere near enough. President Trump has reversed most of that and doesn't seem to be interested at all in lowering the price of prescription drugs. It is a huge cost. Again, you know, he's talking about trying to move pharmaceutical manufacturers back into this country. If he gets on board of negotiating or moving more pharmaceutical manufacturers back here to lower prices, I will be all on board and I will raise my hand and support him. But right now, he's going in a different direction. And I think that is going to be an enormous cost for people, as well as the costs under Medicare. We should not be living in the one country that really pays for a full ride when everyone else is in the cheap seats.
I take a question from a card here from Mary from Cape Elizabeth. I am the owner of a small business in Portland that will be impacted greatly by the Trump tariffs. How can you fight for small family-owned businesses like mine when this president is steamrolling over other branches of government and has Congress hamstrung? Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm very sorry that your business is one of the ones that'll be impacted. You know, I was in the legislature in the 90s during NAFTA, and I was opposed to NAFTA. I have been often on the side of being more protectionist, and I believe in the idea of having more manufacturing in our country, having more processing in our country, but we've given up a lot in the last 20 years, and it is very difficult to move manufacturing back. It doesn't happen overnight. So for the president to say, I'm just going to throw these tariffs out there and we'll have all these big, beautiful factories and they'll come back to your state is a wonderful idea, but it's caused tremendous amount of chaos. And these tariffs, many of them are coming into place right away. If you just look at the way it works in Maine, again, it didn't always used to be this way, but today we have a lot of cross-border industries. Blueberries get harvested and come back in here, and some of them are frozen here or processed there. Our lobsters, they're processed here some of the year, they're processed in Canada other times of year. Softwood lumber, potatoes. We have a lot of our own economy that's been integrated back and forth across the Canadian border. And I would be thrilled if someone was making the investment today to put a bigger lobster processing facility today and our lobsters didn't have to cross the border. But as soon as these tariffs are impacted, those lobsters are going to come across the border with a tariff, and that money's not necessarily going to help our lobster fishermen. So it's confusing. It's complicated. The China tariffs are going to impact people right away. They're already impacting our farmers. And the president is doing it in a way that's very chaotic and doesn't make a lot of sense. The person asked me, what can I do about it? We've all been speaking out about it. I think my Republican colleagues have been just as upset, and we've been talking to them about it. It kind of depends on what state you come from. But from the most part, these are not going to be helpful to our country, and they're only going to make sense if the president is also willing to help support manufacturing coming here and supporting the things that go with manufacturing, like good union jobs and workers and the other protections that people need.
Good evening, Chellie Pingree. My name is Heidi Viertaler, and I thank you so much for all that you did to help to stop the reversal of the Portland to Maine pipeline to the Portland to Montreal pipeline to being reversed to being tar sands from Alberta, Canada. And I'm a elected representative at Freeport to the Cumberland County Democratic City Committee or County Committee. And I also am a proud graduate from Deer Isle Stonington High School, and where we have lobster people who are dealing with sea level like rise and so much, and just on the coast where I live in Freeport too, we have huge storm processes that are happening because of climate change. So I want to know what we are doing and what we can do to put forth and put more energy into doing a moonshot or a Oppenheimer type of investment to a clean, green energy economy.
Thank you. Heidi, thank you for your question. Thank you for being here. And that is one of the deeply distressing things about the Trump administration. They came in as climate deniers. Donald Trump came in on the motto of drill, baby, drill, and the idea that we would just go back to fossil fuels and reversed a lot of the policies related to renewable energy. It's particularly tragic in our state because I think people have done a really good job of helping to make that conversion. And we're also one of the states that really feels the impact. The ocean is one of the most impacted parts of our planet because of climate change, whether it's ocean warming, sea level rise, ocean acidification. And we all care so deeply about our lobster fishing industry, about other sea-based marine life, marine industries, and also the health of our coastlines. We all remember the storms 2 Januaries ago when it devastated about a half of our working waterfront, and we're still trying to clean up and rebuild. I think Hannah mentioned that last week the Trump administration pulled the BRIC grants. That was the FEMA money that was given to communities like Stonington, Deer Isle, like many of the coastal communities, to build resilience into the future, to start planning for the next storm coming, rather than having to wait till the storm destroys us and we've got to spend billions of dollars rebuilding wharfs and rebuilding the coast. So that's troubling. Their reversal on renewable energy is troubling. The stopping of any kind of investment in that. The Inflation Reduction Act, which we passed, was the biggest investment in climate change, our future. And as somebody said, I got to be careful not to always just use those buzzwords. These are good renewable energy jobs that come to our state. We're the most oil dependent state in the nation. We pay the highest rates for electricity and oil and natural gas. And the best thing that people can do is convert to renewable energy at an affordable price and make sure that you don't have to pay forever. It's also the best thing to do for our climate, and climate change deniers would have you believe it's not going to make any difference. But as we start to go back to using fossil fuel, and as this president enacts more of his proposals, that's when I have to say, what kind of future are we going to leave to our children and grandchildren, and what kind of impact are we going to have in the next decade? So thank you for that. We're going to keep fighting hard about this, and we all have to use our voices on this.
Well, thank you, Ms. Pingree. I think you're the only Maine congressperson worth their salt. I also wanted to mention that you don't have to act like a politician. Maintaining respectability and formality is not the most important thing right now. I want to hear my representatives acknowledge what's going on in plain speech, and preferably with some passion. So my question is, do you recognize that the federal government is run by Nazis who are sending people to concentration camps?
Thank you very much for giving me permission to swear. Thank you for wearing a Brontosaurus t-shirt. We are kind of going back to the dark ages here. And I will say, we did a post today about the dire situation of the immigrant from Maryland who's been stuck in a Salvadorian prison. And my team in the post, when we were working on the language of it, used the term gulag. And I was like, should I really call it gulag or just a terrible prison? And I'm like, what the hell? It is a gulag. That's where we're sending people. And if we can send somebody who's legally here, who had a court order to be here, if we can send students who are protesting on college campus because they don't agree with the president's views on Gaza, we can send anybody out of this country and he can get away with it.
Here. All right, we're gonna remember our rules. We have one at a time, so we're gonna go to our note card question next. This is from Representative Morgan Riley. It's about the ACA, Congresswoman. The subject of healthcare has been a major issue. While a lot of headlines have rightfully focused on the cuts to Medicaid, I wanted to ask you about the enhanced premium tax credit, which is set to expire at the end of this year. This credit is a critical tool for thousands of Mainers who get their health coverage on the marketplace. As a state rep and someone who works on oyster farms, is that correct? All right. I've seen how vital the subsidy is to fishermen, farmers, and small businesses. Will you support extending this vital tax credit?
Was that from one of you guys? Oh, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's an often little understood part of how the Affordable Care Act works, why it has been successful for so many people in Maine, and why that subsidy is so important. I have no doubt that they are going to attempt to cut that. That's it. And I think between the cuts to Medicaid, their current plan is to cut somewhere, we're not exactly sure where this will land, but we're supposed to have the vote before Memorial Day, so we will know soon, somewhere around $890 billion to Medicaid. And I think those will also be in that cut. I don't know yet, but I will certainly try to make sure everybody understands what's being cut. And again, they are doing that in the president's one big beautiful bill that he talks about, cuts to Medicaid. Those Medicaid cuts will impact senior citizens in nursing homes, families who, many of whom work 2 jobs but depend on Medicaid for their health care, children with rare diseases, a whole variety of people. This will also go after SNAP benefits, people who go hungry in our state every day, all to give tax cuts to billionaires and big corporations. They're not cutting this to cut the deficit. They're not cutting it to make our state more financially stable or our country more financially stable. They're doing it for tax cuts. Oh, is this still about your question about Nazis? Yeah. It's a good question. I'm never quite sure about using the phrase Nazis because that's a very specific moment in time and people who were part of that. But it's true that many people who are white supremacists believe in Nazi ideology and speech. And I hear what you're saying.
We're going to move on to our next question, Jim. Ma'am, we're going to give you one more view, and then we're going to ask you to leave. I'm sorry, but this is, well, we're going to have the Westbrook Police Department help you leave if you don't want to sit down.
I'm sorry to have you leave, but if you'd like to go, you're free to go.
All right. Can our friends from the Westbrook Police help our constituent depart?
If you want to tell me one more time, what is it exactly that you want me to do? That you just want me to say that the president is a Nazi or the people who work with him are Nazis?
Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry to see you go, and I appreciate your thoughts. Yeah, thank you very much for your question.
Jim.
It's always good to follow some.
Keep it lively.
Okay, so first of all, Honorable Representative Pingree, thank you for representing us, and thank you for bringing the political opportunity to us this evening to have a say, because we're not getting a lot of says outside of here right now. I would like to turn the conversation just for a minute to education. In the state of Maine, there are approximately 35,000 students in schools today who have individualized education plans. They receive special education services, and they require specialized accommodations, modifications, and specialized programming to access their learning in a way that works for them. And most specifically, I represent the Maine Educational Center for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, where we have 550 students and clients from the age of birth to 22 spread across our great state. And I'm greatly concerned as to what's happening at the federal level to education. Now, I heard you mention Title I funding. For my particular institution, that's only $12,500 this year. We receive 88% of our funding from the state of Maine. But what I know is if money is removed from the state's got to find some of that funding elsewhere. And that means that we'll see a shift as well. So any of the students who are supported through federal funds for special education or supported through the state mechanism for special ed, including our great 550 folks, are going to pay the price for that. And I'm curious about your thoughts on special education funding.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. And thank you for the work that you do. I think I'm sure you are a big help to the students that you work with, and thank you for caring about education. So one more time, the president came into office saying he was going to eliminate the Department of Education. They've already cut the majority of the staff there, and their goal is to just see it gone, to no longer have it anymore. Now, of course, they say to us, don't worry about the money. We're going to put it in other departments. We'll still send this money back to your states. But one, we've learned already when they eliminate all the staff from a department, it's very hard to administer the funds, and many of them are complicated formulas that go to the state. More than likely, what they will do, if they continue to fund education at all, is send some block grants back to the state, but not necessarily suggest that it goes for, in your case, your question, special education. Maine gets about 60 some million dollars for Title I teachers, 60 some million dollars for special education, and a variety of other things are funded through the Maine, the Federal Department of Education. And as you said, if we stop receiving those funds, then it becomes a challenge of the state legislature that is already challenged to figure out how to fund their percentage of education and help our local school districts to keep their budgets whole. Special education, I know I got my start on a school board. It is always one of the hardest things to fully fund. The federal government does not even meet its mandate. We've always put in requests for more funding for the federal government because we need more, and it's an ever-growing part of schools' budgets. You mentioned IEPs. We had a question last night from a parent who's got 2 kids who have an IEP and worried about who will do that, who will supervise that, how do you know those things will continue, and the difference that makes in a kid's life to get that special level of attention, to make sure that their special needs are met, and to make sure that the funding is there for the teachers to do it is critically important. You know, one more thing about the Department of Education, if you're a parent with a special, a child who receives special needs funding or gets an IEP, and you don't like things, the way things are going in your particular school department, you can appeal to the Department of Education. Last year, there were 20,000 appeals, and that's part of what they're there to do, to make sure your state delivers those services. That's gone. They've already fired all those people in the Civil Rights Division of Education. So that's already over. So we're deeply worried about what's happening here. This is an administration that would be just as happy to privatize the school. This is an administration where the Secretary of Education didn't know what IDEA or an IEP was. In fact, wasn't she the one who yesterday called AIA1? Yeah, that's hard to do when you're around Elon Musk every day, because all those people do is use AI. So anyway, thank you for the work you're doing. This is a really serious issue, and it will impact all of us.
Thank you, Congresswoman Pingree, for doing this. I really appreciate it. My name is Rod. I live in Freeport. And my question is, we've all heard the news about how President Trump's erratic tariff policies have affected the stock market. Can you talk about how it has also affected Treasury bonds and the benchmark 10-year Treasury yield? And does this pose a significant threat to the U.S. financial system and economy if foreign governments and other institutions begin to dump Treasury bonds?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Something tells me you know something about this, and you could have answered that question, and probably more intelligently than I will. But it is true. There was a lot of attention focused on the up and down in the market. And of course, there was a lot of attention focused on when the president said, hey, everybody should buy, the market is low. And then that afternoon took the tariffs off, which probably meant that a lot of people made a lot of money, and they weren't necessarily in this room. But what I have heard from people who know more about the market than me, and the things that I've read, is that what really was what turned the tariff situation around was what happened to the bond market overnight. And because China and Japan, other countries hold a lot of our bonds, and it started selling them off, there was deep concern in the market about selling off U.S. bonds, and the fact that we are in a position to have to sell quite a few more in the near future, and worried about the stability. That undermines the entire fiscal financial stability of this country. We sell a lot of our debt to other countries. People may not like that idea. That's good and that's bad. But the fact is, if you undermine that, you've done a lot of damage to our financial security. This is one of the things that is so deeply disturbing about what they're doing, both with the DOGE cuts and what they're planning in their one big beautiful bill where they're going to cut Medicaid and SNAP benefits, is that for all people have talked about, and I know many of you, whether you're Republicans or Democrats in this room, worry about our debt and deficit and how much debt we have to sell. They are not intending to do anything for the deficit. In fact, in that one big beautiful bill, they will raise the debt ceiling. So once again, they will raise the debt ceiling. And for all the times I've been on the other side of this debate and somebody has said to me, you're in Congress, you got to do something about the deficit. And I agree, we need to bring down the deficit. That is not going to happen, because when you cut taxes for the wealthiest in this country, you cut the revenue stream. And don't let anybody tell you that there'll be trickle-down economics. And when the billionaires get richer, it's somehow going to come to you. I've been there before. It didn't happen.
I want to echo my appreciation for you being here and taking the time to show up when a lot of representatives and senators are not doing that. I also, and I do appreciate the breadth and depth of knowledge that you have in everything that you are juggling and consistently working on, and how well you've answered all these questions. And I'm going to echo back to the very first question, is how we got here. The Democrats have had a messaging problem, not just for a couple years, but for a couple decades now. We're in trouble, and it's only going to get worse. If we are continually behind the 8 ball, it's only going to get worse, and it's pretty damn bad right now. And I appreciate you said that you're working on it, and I believe that you all are. You're not doing a good enough job, and please take that with the utmost respect, because we're in trouble, and it's been coming for a long time.
Thank you. And again, I will just say thank you. I wholeheartedly agree. I have always tried as an individual member of Congress to stick on the side of understanding what my constituents need and speaking up for that. But I do believe, as sort of a Democratic Party, we have often found ourselves on the wrong side of at least the messaging, sometimes the debate. We haven't worked hard enough to get money out of politics, one of the biggest scourges of what we deal with every day. And I think the fact that that is true, now, I don't want to besmirch anybody, because all of us collect money to run for office, all of us pay for TV ads, all of us do those things, but there's a difference between feeling you're beholden to the people who donate to you and taking the money. But if we had public financing of our elections, it would never be a question for anybody. You would never wonder about your representative, and no representative would ever be beholden. And that means it wouldn't be so hard to regulate the pharmaceutical industry or the defense industry or big ag or the food processing industry or many of the big entities that contribute a lot to Congress. And again, I want to say many times people take campaign contributions. It doesn't influence their decision. But the fact is, it would be so good if we got rid of it. And you just look at what's going on now. We're at the height of corruption, where the president has put somebody in charge of cutting government to the bone, who also receives billions of dollars in government contracts. Whether it's at NASA or using Starlink or all of the things that Elon Musk owns. And that's just one of his big contributors who does this, but also the ability to ask Elon Musk, if a representative doesn't toe the line, buy some ads in their district or spend some money on their primary opponent. I mean, that's not the way this system is supposed to work. And as long as we're beholden to money in this big process, we're never going to get our country back on track.
Hello, Congresswoman Pingree. Thank you for being here. So I'm a student at the University of Southern Maine, and we have a lot of worries going on at university. We are worried about the academic integrity. One of my university professors is being laid off because she taught a class about Palestinian history and culture. They're also getting rid of our diversity center, and many of our international students are worried that they would face detention and deportation. And what would you do to protect academic integrity and make sure that our professors are being make sure they can give a quality education?
Thank you for your question. I don't know a lot about what's going on about the things that you just mentioned at our own universities, but I would be happy to meet with a student group at any time to talk more about that. But I will say overall about academic integrity, I am deeply worried about what's going on in this country, whether it is scientific integrity. You know, we've seen the administration cut back science funding at universities. Scientific studies are being stopped by the day. I have a list in my packet here of basically banned words at the Agricultural Research Service. They pulled grants, hundreds of them, for using words like diversity or PFAS or climate change. So scientific research is being stifled, health research, vital medical breakthroughs, but also, and again, I don't know about the professor in question, but I'm deeply worried about professors who want to speak out freely. This administration has made it very clear, if you don't agree with them on Gaza, he will deport you, he will take away money from your university. That is not free speech in this country. I said this, yeah. I'll just quickly add, you know, I know there are some people in the room who are closer to my age than a student. But, you know, I grew up in the era where I spent a lot of my high school years protesting the war in Vietnam. We had a draft. We weren't sure why people were being drafted into a war that didn't make any sense. And young men were dying for a war that we didn't believe in, and eventually our country admitted was wrong. But what stopped that war were student protests. In the end, it was students speaking up, questioning authority, talking back. And the very idea we are trying to prevent students from doing that today is unthinkable to me, or saying to academic institutions, or the academic institutions that are complying in advance because they think they're going to get their funding cut, so they eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's all wrong.
All right, we're going to go back to our comment cards for a minute. This is from Nancy and Harrison. Chellie, what is being done to restore funding to the Institute of Library and Museum Sciences? All of our small libraries are affected by this funding loss.
Who does that? Like, who cuts funding to librarians? I don't, you know, whatever party you're in, whatever your beliefs are, whatever you think about government, small libraries, historical societies, museums throughout Maine are held together with money from the National Endowment for the Humanities and the IMLS, the Museum and Library Service. This is the place where libraries go to get technology advances, to make it possible to have broadband at the library so students who don't have it at home can come and study at the library, to support our librarians. It's just unthinkable to me that they went in there 2 weeks ago, decimated the staff, left it with like 10 or 15 people, and took back all the money. Same at the National Endowment for the Humanities. Maine has a wonderful humanities council, does work with students, does work with veterans reading books, does work with the Franco-American collection and digitizing it, with historic films. I mean, things that we all as Mainers love. There's no politics in this. And now they're taking on the National Endowment for the Arts. They're going after the creative economy, which is so vital to our state. Hi, Donna. And that's the money that goes to small theaters and to community dance or to arts in our schools, school districts that don't have enough money. And you know what? Donald Trump is going to take all that money and he's going to repurpose it for the things that he thinks should be taught. His historic garden of patriots that he is going to assign to some state and choose all 150 statues himself, his own little Mount Rushmore collection. He's taking money away. He already got rid of the staff, so he can't make the grants anymore. I mean, believe you me, we're fighting back. But I just want you to know what they're doing and what their vision is. Just like they did to the Kennedy Center, they walked in. He wants to, you know, turn it into his own center. He'll decide who performs there and who doesn't. And basically, they will run one of our great performing arts centers, a memorial to John F. Kennedy. They'll run it into the ground. And they're doing this to libraries in small towns. There's no sense in it. It's the tiniest little piece of our budget. It is not going to return a tax break to you. It's going to go to his spending.
Hello, Madam Representative. Thank you for coming to hear our concerns. My name is Kim and I'm intersex. There are 5.6 million intersex individuals in America. More are born every day to cishet couples. In my case, I was born with both ovaries and testes. And so I had the organ at birth that makes a big cell and the organ that makes a small cell. Now the orange idiot saw fit to basically outlaw my biological sex and disallow me from using any restroom in the federal facility. I'm required to use the men's room or required to use the women's room, but I'm also legally prohibited from both. And I'm also afraid to cross the border and visit Canada because I don't want to lose my passport. I'm in the same boat as trans people. And the thing is, we outnumber trans people by a wide margin, and it is very provable that human sexuality is not binary. What are you doing to protect us? What? Thank you. What are you doing to protect us? My whole life I faced discrimination. I wanted to fight for this country. I was disallowed from attending the USAF Academy, and that crushed my dreams of a career path through NASA. I wanted to push the boundaries of science on behalf of America. I want to defend this nation, and this nation has never loved me. This nation still doesn't love me. This nation has done nothing but unmask itself when it re-elected Donald Trump.
Thank you very much for coming to be here with us today and to speaking your own personal truth. Thank you very much for coming here and for telling your own personal story. And I hope you can see that there's a lot of support for you in this room. And you can count on me to support you, to support trans people, to support everyone who this president has tried to legislate against, discriminate against, and turn people against. You're right. You've been denied opportunities. Many people are being denied opportunities under this president, and we will continue to fight back for you.
Okay. Hi there. Thank you for being here. My name is Pamela. I'm from Portland. And, you know, doing a little postmortem on how we got here in November, a lot of political pundits talked about how young people feel shut out of the process. Some have gone so far as to call our Congress a gerontocracy, our leaders a gerontocracy, that there's not diversity in age. And the statistics hold that to be true. So my question is, how is the Democratic Party in particular going to re-engage young people?
It's a very good question, and I think Congress has had a lot of older members in it who didn't retire when their time come. God forbid I don't retire when my time has come. I'm getting old, but I'm not ready to go yet. But I appreciate the question because I think we all have to know when it's time to make time for the next generation. And truthfully, the good news is we have elected some amazing younger members and more younger members every day. And I hope someday you just turn on C-SPAN, look at the Democratic side, look at the diversity of our members, the number of women members, and the number of young members. AOC is one of our favorites, but we've got a lot of AOCs. And the good news is you know, they're fighting back. Many of them won committee chairs this year. Many of them have won. Good people like Nancy Pelosi knew enough to step aside, let Hakeem Jeffries take over. But it's all true. And whatever it takes to engage young people, I think has got to be on the forefront of all of our minds. Young people are the ones who are going to see the most damage from this administration. The destruction to Social Security has got a bullseye on them, but the cost of housing, the cost of childcare, the cost of making a living today, the inability to, get paid a living wage at your job, all those things are impacting young people today. And then the climate crisis and the dangers about our future around the world, I think, are making it even worse. And it's a very important thing. I mean, we are trying to rethink how we do everything. Spend more time with our constituents, make more videos, go on podcasts. I don't think there's any easy way, but I think, many of us have missed the boat of how we communicate with people and how we talk to people. It is ludicrous that Donald Trump, who is 78 and probably not as fit as he says he was in his physical, but all fair game, he won fair and square, but he won young men. He won young men, and disaffected young men believe they had a better shot with him. And that's on us. We got to figure out how we make sure that people understand there's a better future for you in universal health care or a more populist agenda than Donald Trump is promising you. So we've got our work cut out for us.
Hi, thank you, Congresswoman Pingree. My name's Josh. I'm from here in Westbrook. And I don't want to go over territory that you've already covered pretty well, but I do want to emphasize the clock ticking on the detention of Kilmar Abrego Garcia in El Salvador. The detention of Sumero Oztuk from Tufts University, the detention of Mahmoud Khalil, and the general culture of fear that we're experiencing right now. I know Senator Van Hollen from Maryland is looking to get a meeting with the president from El Salvador, or looking to go down to El Salvador and see if he can secure passage for Abrego Garcia to come back. I'm wondering, number one, if you might be part of that, and number two, if there is anything you can offer me in terms of what you're doing in Congress to remove this culture of fear, to let people live their lives, to continue to organize and to speak out, because this culture of fear is damaging our country greatly, and I would like to see Congress address it more thoroughly, more urgently.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for reminding us all of the urgency of this. Just before I came in here, I was reading something from my colleagues. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus is organizing a trip to go to El Salvador and to make an attempt to meet with him. And let's recall that based on some of the legal analysis that I've seen, over 50% of the Venezuelans who have been deported to that same prison, including a makeup artist from Los Angeles, don't have a criminal background. Many of them, it was just about the clothes they were wearing or the tattoo. So again, we have much to fear. And also the students who have been deported, the Brown University professor, we are paying attention to it every day and attempting to push back in any way we can. But I think this broader question of immigration, we all agreed that you can't have chaos at the border, that we have to have a legal immigration system, that we have to have a pathway to citizenship, and we have to make sure that the rule of law is followed. That all went out the window with this president. He shut everything down. As you know, he doesn't respect the rule of law, and we're fearful for who will be immigrated. I want you all to know that in my own office here, we make immigration and helping our asylum seekers a priority. So if any of you have ever and I'll say it every day, criminals should be deported, and the border should be secure. But if you ever come to visit my office on Commercial Street, prior to this administration, you would have seen a steady stream of asylum seekers who come into our office, work with my amazing team, who are very well versed in federal law relating to immigration, particularly work permits, but also family reunification and many of the things that have to be done. And we keep our office open so that people can meet with us every day. Now that stream has slowed down a little bit because people are afraid to leave their homes. They're afraid to go to work. They're afraid to go to their jobs. They're afraid to go to healthcare. And that is deeply concerning in a state that has been very welcoming, and in a state where our small businesses and our employers have benefited greatly from the new Mainers who come, who are wonderful workers, who are a great addition to our community. And who are great students in our school. But individuals and policies, we focus on every day. We've been the ones to sponsor the reduction of time that it takes to get a work permit. We're working on that bill and trying to work across the aisle on it. On H-2B visa workers, we focus on those things, and we focus on the individuals who are targeted in Maine. Virtually every day, Jamie, is that true? Almost every day we get a call about somebody who was picked up. And we do our best to work with organizations like ILAP and other immigrant advocacy organizations to use the power of our office to get people back out of jail when they're illegally detained, or to do whatever we can to keep track of who is being picked up. I fear when we get the one big beautiful bill, there's $170 billion in there for more border security. And I believe the president will ramp up greatly. And that will mean that they'll raise their quotas and they'll pick up more people who shouldn't be picked up. But I guarantee you we're going to fight back every single day.
Thank you so much for being here and for giving us the chance to have this live forum. We really appreciate it. My name is Marcy Leger. I live in Bath, and I'm very active in the Saginaw Democrats. And so many of the people that I talk about in our group and around the community feel that the Dems don't have enough of a clear and unified voice in calling out the corrupt and illegal actions of the Trump administration. I'd like to suggest that the Dems should be doing a daily 15-minute COVID-style press conference to something that would help all Americans really understand what the Trump administration has done today and what the implications are for all of us, for all the American people. So thank you for considering that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for being an activist. And it's a great idea. And I will, as soon as this congressional recess is over, I'll go back and pitch it to my colleagues. And I will say, I am one of the people, great. I don't want to bore you with the in the weeds stuff, but I can tell you guys are concerned about the message and what we're doing. And I will say that there's been a little bit of a divide, because if you listen to the Steve Bannon podcast, which I do to make sure I know what they're doing on the other side, he always talks about it as flooding the zone. And 3 times a day, they do something that's so outrageous, you can hardly believe they're doing it. Sometimes it's a cut, a staffing cut, a funding cut, an illegal activity, disrespecting the courts, whatever it is. And there are those people who say, you can't get distracted by what they do 3 times a day. You got to just focus on the big, beautiful bill or Medicaid or these big cuts. But I truly believe that every one of the things that he does impacts somebody or will touch somebody who maybe didn't care about politics before, or who believed that Donald Trump was going to be a good president and now they're concerned about it, or who is a longtime Republican but might say, wait, that doesn't represent Republican values to me. So I'm of the belief that every day we should do a litany of what they're doing, that we should explain it to people, because these are impacting all your lives, and you need to know what's happening, whether it's the Social Security, the EPA, or the arts. So I'm with you on that.
Hello, my name is Alex Wu. I'm a Scarborough High School senior and also the president of our Civil Rights Club. I'd just like to thank you, first of all, for coming down to our school with former National of the Endowments Chair Shelley Lowe, who has now been forced to resign because of Trump. I'd like to speak a little bit about youth engagement. I'm a co-founder of the League of Women Voters National Youth Council, so I know a little bit about youth engagement. I would like to say that I don't think youth are a community that needs to be engaged. We want to see you doing things. Right now, my greatest concern is not being up to date on all these issues, I'm worried if I'm going to have a future. We're about to head into a recession with all of these tariffs, specifically on China. And also, I am Chinese, so I'm afraid to see my extended family in China. If I ever travel internationally, I'm afraid by the time I get back, he's going to change the rules, and I, as a citizen, will not be able to re-enter the country. I'm wondering, why are Democrats not doing more to resist the Trump administration and putting on a united front? Jared Golden voted in favor of voter suppression with the SAVE Act. He is a Democrat. Why do we have to do these things to message for Democrats? And I don't believe it's a messaging thing, because I admire and respect you. I've seen your Instagram. I don't believe it's a matter of connecting to the youth. I want to see you do things. I've seen you wear pink. Why are you not doing strategies that Republicans have done for decades, interrupting sessions, preventing these laws from being passed? I want to know what Dems can do to disrupt this process beyond just speaking and sitting wearing pink.
Thank you.
I want to see disruption.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your thoughts and for your fight. I take it all as valid criticism. I can't speak for my colleagues and their votes. Everyone votes independently, but you can always count on me to vote in the right way. Shelley Long, who headed up the NEH, really enjoyed her visit to Scarborough High School and really enjoyed meeting the kids. But it's all good criticism. I totally agree. And I hope that I am in the fight every single day. I do not believe this is a messaging issue. I do not believe if we just say the right words, or if we were to get the right spokesperson, or if we could all unify and say exactly the same thing every day, we would win. We are seeing the total destruction of our democracy by someone who doesn't believe in it, who would like to just be an autocrat or a dictator, and would like to take away all of our rights. So I believe it's the fight of our lifetime. I don't believe it's your responsibility to fix everything. I believe it's my responsibility, but we are all in this together. And I'm never going to win as just one member of Congress. Even the 215 Democrats in the House are never going to win. And when it comes to stopping the process, stopping the vote, they might not have done the right thing in the Senate, but you can count on us in the House. Anytime there is a chance to block a vote that will change the course of things, when it's the one big beautiful bill or something we can do, we will sit down, we will protest, we will do whatever it takes to try to stop it. But I want you to know this isn't easy. It's not simple to block the Republicans when they're in the majority, or when the Supreme Court doesn't buck up and do the right thing.
All right, so I just want to do a time check. We probably have time for 2 more questions. Folks that didn't get a chance to have their questions asked, our comment cards, where's Pam? Pam's around with the basket. Please feel free. Myself and our colleagues will be out in the hallway. Happy to chat some more. But Jim, why don't you have one more, and then Molly, one more on your side.
Hi, Congresswoman Pingree. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Britt. I'm from Cape Elizabeth. I just moved to Maine 2 years ago after serving abroad for 10 years with USAID. So thanks for your comments on USAID. So I worked on supporting democracy and peace-building support programs abroad on behalf of our government. So it's kind of awkward to be here in the U.S. having to do this, but the writing was on the wall. And I appreciate what you said about the fact that people need to organize and get out, and we need to continue to do what we're doing. We're all here in solidarity, for sure. And the litigation is also an important line of effort. And it seems like a lot of people are looking to the elections. And this is something that I'm a bit concerned about, 2026. We've already seen an overt example with the SAVE Act of the potential for our elections to not be free and fair in 2026. And like others have said, I'm a bit concerned the Democratic Party isn't seeing the extent to which this is a sea change moment. Your comments just now indicate you see that, but we're not seeing it enough every day in a drumbeat that's continuous, because this is a sea change. Having worked in authoritarian governments abroad and trying to support people to push back against them, I could tell you it's bad here. And I'm wondering if you think we're going to have free and fair elections in 2026. Yeah. last bit of it is particularly here in Maine, we are in the bullseye in terms of attention from the federal government, from the center. So I'm particularly concerned in this purple state how we're going to fare when it comes to free and fair elections.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your work at USAID. I think it's very hard for people to understand at times the importance of the international work that we do, whether it's around health services or promoting democracy around the world or having good relationships. You know, a lot of generals have said, don't buy me more bullets, give me more foreign aids in foreign countries so that people believe in democracy and believe in our country. So you were doing incredible work. It's unbelievable that they just took that away overnight, something that mostly Republicans have supported over time. But your question is about elections, and that may be the most important question of the night. I wholeheartedly agree. Our elections are vulnerable. We have a president who wants to serve an illegal third term. And you're right, and you can say it firsthand, we have a president who is modeling his administration after people like Viktor Orban, who took away the right of free speech, took books out of the library, took away the free press, did everything he could to take control of the government, the people, the funding. And you can turn back to parallels from 1939, although I may not have said it as strongly as somebody wanted, but it is true. We are watching something that looks like a dictatorship and an authoritarian government and taking power away from the people and our freedom of speech. And I'm deeply concerned about that. And the protections of our election laws are extremely important, because when we lose the ability to vote, or when we just make it so hard for people to vote that if you've got 2 jobs, or you got to pick the kids up from daycare, or you've got a lot of things going on in your life, you're not going to say, oh, I can fit in voting today. Or if you get to the polling place and they say, oh, you didn't have a passport, you're not allowed, you're not a real citizen, you can't do that even if you've been voting in that polling place for 25 years of your life and you live in a small town and everybody knows you anyway, so how do you vote illegally? I don't know. But the point is, this is very concerning. It's concerning that there will be referendums on the ballot, because this is happening in states all over the country, and is concerning about things like SAVE Act. And I strongly disagree with my colleague on the second district for voting against it, and I really hope that the Senate can block this. So calling the Senate on that one is a critically important thing to do. We need to get both of our senators to vote no.
Hello. I just want to thank you so much. I've done everything I could do from the very beginning in January, and I have ended up depressed, confused, terrified, sometimes joyous every now and then. But I just want you to know that it is so important that you are here and you are empathetic and you are relating to us, because for a while you just don't know what's going on in Congress, even though I read and it seems so far away, but it's so important that you are here, and I really, really thank you. Also, I have a great concern about the rule of law, and I'm very concerned, what do we do if Trump does not comply with the Supreme Court? Well, how do we fight that? And the second thing is, I am astounded that people can stand around in the Oval Office with awe on their faces while he signs these horrific, stupid things. I mean, why? And so, and I'll be quick, and so what can you do about these people who are so, I mean, someone, you know, the Speaker of the House, I mean, he's just adores this man. What is their problem? And can you do anything about it? Can you influence it? And I thank you with all my heart that you're here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for doing everything you can. For a person who's feeling a little depressed, you gave us all some humor, so thank you for that. These are ridiculous and stupid executive orders. and you can, pull out the list and read them sometime. It's very depressing, but remember, executive orders do not have the force of law. They were not passed by Congress. Even if Trump is picking on Maine because of an executive order, it is not the law. And on Friday night, Maine won its first case against the administration. And I want to be 100% clear. Although the president has decided to pick on people who are transgender and make a focus of this, and however you feel about that issue in our schools, he still does not have the right to take funding away from Maine because he doesn't like something that we do. If he doesn't like the roads, or he doesn't like the ocean, or he doesn't like the color of my hair, he doesn't get to take money away from us. So just remember that we are on the right side there, and we can debate all those other issues, but this one is something he doesn't have a right to do. And all of his stupid, thank you, executive orders are just that. They're the way he would like to govern because he believes he should just have like a fiat and then you do it. And he doesn't have to answer to Congress, and he doesn't have to answer the courts. I am deeply concerned about the case right now that we've been talking about, the Maryland father who was taken away and he is not following the rule of law with the Supreme Court. I imagine we will see some back and forth on that. But if it comes down to a moment where he really defies them and it's a final moment, we are in a constitutional crisis. We don't have a lot of the tools that we should normally have because we don't have a Justice Department that is necessarily always willing to defend the rule of law. So sanctions or bringing out the military may be a little tough with this president. Believe me, we are going to fight it every step of the way. I think there are people who are very concerned and focused on this, but I just don't want you to think I'm taking this lightly. This is something to seriously worry about. I want to remind you of one more thing. It only takes 3 Republicans to change their minds, to stop going along with Donald Trump. We've talked a lot about Democrats today, and I'll take it all on my shoulders. I will try to do everything better, and I will do everything I can to get my colleagues to do it better. But in the long run, they control the House, they control the Senate. We only need 3 of them to change their minds. So we spend a lot of time, and you should too. If you got a cousin in a Republican district, make sure they're calling them. Make sure they know that the people who might have voted for them at one point in time are no longer happy with what they're doing to the Department of Education or to our international relations or the situation in Ukraine or the Environmental Protection Agency or climate change, because it doesn't take much for them to regain their senses, get a spine, and to start to vote against things like the big, beautiful bill and the things that are coming before us. But until they do, we don't have the same power of Congress that we need. But I know it's time. I appreciate that you've all come here tonight. I just want to thank you again, because you've all said thank you to me many times, or you have reminded me of how to do my job better. But I want you to take heart, because what you said is true of all of us. There are days when none of us want to get out of bed and face what we think is going to be in the news that day, or what we're worried about is going to happen. Believe you me, there are days I don't want to go do my job, but I consider it a great privilege that I do get to do my job and fight for you. And I consider it a great privilege that you would take your time to come here, whether it's to give me a suggestion or a criticism or an idea or to ask a question. And the fact that you are all paying so much attention, and you represent 10 times as many people who are busy tonight or aren't going to come out or are doing something else or live in a different part of the state, who are deeply worried about what's going on and want to do anything you can. And the fact that we've heard from so many students tonight who might be mad, but they are mad and they're paying attention and they're waiting for all of us to get this fixed and get it done, and they're engaging themselves. It all matters. It all means a lot. I'm so grateful to all of you for spending this time with me. We are going to win. We're going to turn our country around and get this ship righted, but we got a lot of work ahead of us. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.